All right. So, hello, everybody. Happy Friday. I am Michelle Avalos, and I am here today with Tim Jeffcoat from the SBA. If you all have not met us before, let's do a little introduction so that we can get this session kicked off. So, I am the co-founder and deputy director of Impact Hub Houston. We are an impact innovation catalyst here to support you as you're trying to build solutions for some of the city's most pressing problems. I am joined today with our special guest, Tim Jeffcoat, who is the district director of SBA Houston. Tim, how are you doing?
Doing great, and thank you for having me. Pleased to be here.
Yeah, we always love partnering with the SBA. You guys are doing such amazing work across the city. And I actually am curious, how long have you been with the SBA?
How long? I don't know. I'd have to figure it out. I worked about 20 years in private industry, and I've been in SBA, I think, for about 15 years, here in Houston for 7.
Wow, that's wonderful. And for ever since Impact Hub Houston joined our city, we have been working with SBA quite closely to make sure that we are staying up to speed with all the resources that you all have for the small business community, even for the startup community as well. And this is just another example of how we are working to bring you all more information about funding opportunities that the SBA is providing. So if you have been keeping up with our social media, we recently had our annual Houston Hackathon. The 2022 Houston Hackathon happened this weekend. And so we had a variety of developers, students, creatives, entrepreneurs, policymakers come together and start hacking towards some of the city's most pressing challenges. And so those submissions are actually open for public voting right now. I'll drop the link in the comments so that you guys can vote for them. But all of these ideas are going out there. What happens next? So as we're waiting for the judges to submit those scores, we wanted to get a little bit ahead of the curve and start sharing with all of you watching today what are some possible funding opportunities that you can consider for your project idea. And one of those is this thing that, honestly, Tim, I actually just found out about this 2 weeks ago. Yeah, I know. I actually was meeting with one of your colleagues and she mentioned this and I said, what? What is this? How come I haven't heard about it? So we wanted to make sure that we change that and we bring that to our community here at Impact Hub Houston. And so, Tim, would you please tell us a little bit more about this Small Business Innovation Research Program, the SBIR, that the SBA is presenting?
Sure. We are one of the best kept secrets in federal government, and unfortunately, that means some of our programs are too, like SBIR. But SBIR is a way for firms to get non-dilutive capital, so these are grants, to help fund technology innovation. We know what problems we have in the federal government, whether that's at the Department of Defense or whether that's at the National Science Foundation. We know what our problems are, but we don't know what the solutions are. So this is a way to seed innovation across the United States, and we like to call this the largest seed fund in the United States.
That is a great opportunity. And what you said was key, the non-dilutive. So if you are not familiar with that term, would you explain a little bit about what non-dilutive means?
Yeah, so rather than, let's say, a venture capitalist or an angel capitalist making investment in your firm, often that means that it's going to dilute your ownership because they will become a part owner in your business. This is non-dilutive. This is grant money. So this is the government giving you money to help spur the innovation that we want to see.
That's the best kind of money.
Well, yeah. Well, you can't argue about that. We break it up into a couple of phases. When you apply for an SBIR grant, and there's a whole process there, that will be between $50,000 and $250,000. So
Wow.
that's essentially for you to do your white paper that explains in great detail what this invention or innovation would be. And then if it proceeds, into what's called phase 2. That's up to $1.8 million.
Wow.
And a nice way to characterize that is that's to develop a significant proof of concept, prototype, something of that.
Wow, that's wonderful. I love that y'all it's been set up in a way where it's helping these innovators, these entrepreneurs through the various stage of that pipeline of development. So that's super key. Sometimes if you guys are in the process of looking for this type of funding for your project, your idea, your prototype, it's a one-time. Here is if you either enter a pitch competition or you're applying for a program, it's a one-time award. It's $1,000, $5,000. Sometimes it could be greater, but it's a one-time thing. And Tim will explain a little bit later how this program also is a little bit more involved in the process. It's not just a apply, here's your check, good luck.
No.
You guys are a little bit more plugged into the process as well. So before we jump into that, these are the acronyms that I learned: SBIR, STTR, SBIR, STTR. Say that like 10 times and see.
Yep.
So what is the difference? What the SBIR, the Small Business Innovation Research, and then the STTR, the Small Business Technology Transfer. What is the difference?
Right. Real easy. SBIR means we are going to grant money, for example, to Michelle's company to help them get this technology innovation to a point where it can be commercialized. STTR is when Michelle will be working in conjunction, usually with a university. So a great example right here in Houston, some of our university system regularly works on medical innovation, but their focus is researching the technology, not really bringing a product to market. At the same time, there are wonderful firms here in Houston that like to partner with the universities on those innovations, and their job is to bring it to market. And part of the way they do that is through STTR grants.
Okay, so then bringing it to market is the STTR part of the program.
Well, no, STTR would be working with a university.
Working with a university specifically.
So usually using their research that they've started and then bringing it to the point of commercialization. Real important point, SBIR and STTR grants do not fund commercializing the product. It funds the development of the product. What can happen, so Michelle and I go into business together, we get an SBIR grant, we go through phase 1, let's say that was $200,000. We pass into phase 2, they fund us, let's say $1,000. We develop a great working prototype of a product. Now what has to happen is it has to be manufactured. That point, the federal government might give you an order for whatever you can produce. And then we become your customer for this brand new to the world product. We might say, you know what, we like what you've done, it's really nice, but we don't want to buy it. But at that point, we have funded something that can be commercialized. Yeah. And that's something you should be able to take then to a venture capital firm, some other investor, or possibly even to the bank, and get funding for the tooling and the other things necessary to actually go manufacture and commercialize that product.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Thank you for clarifying that point. I love the way that it's set up, because what you're saying is that even if you go through the process and you go through the program, the best case is that you're still coming out of there with, something. So what happens next?
No, I was going to say, not only that, but you come out with something, but you also come out with kind of like an SBIR badge of honor in a sense. So if you've been funded federal government for phase 1 and phase 2 of SBIR, there are a lot of folks that would be really interested in talking to you, even if we don't invest in your product further by ordering it. It's a big deal that you got funded by us through SBIR or STTR. So that should increase your attractiveness to investment.
I echo that 100%, because when you're attending a pitch competition, for example, they always ask you to put on one of the slides, what have you been able to accomplish, or what are those like highlights from your team? And so clearly having this SBIR badge of honor on that slide would be very helpful for even additional funding for that project or startup.
Yeah, so we've got a new phrase now, SBIR badge of honor.
Yes, we can make stickers. I love that. So which agencies participate in these type of programs?
Yeah, great question. And it's really important to talk about this because that directly relates to what they're likely to want to grant money for. So there's 11 agencies: agriculture, commerce, defense department. So defense, of course, breaks down into Air Force, Army, Navy, DARPA, a whole bunch of different sub-agencies. Education, energy, health and human services, homeland security, transportation, environmental protection, NASA, and then the National Science Foundation. Here in Houston, we have a lot of health-related SBIR and STTR activity occurring. So Health and Human Services and National Science Foundation are pretty prominent in the Houston area.
Wow. And then so then out of those 11 participating agencies, which one grants the most money to Houston specifically?
Yeah, good question. National Institute of Health is 26% of the dollars that have occurred. So I did a summary over 5 years. What's really important to note is I included 2022. And these SBIR grants don't really get reported for about a year. So even though it includes 2022, this is more of a 4-year kind of time frame. I know that was too many details. So in that time period, though, 26% of the money came from National Institute of Health, 22% from the Air Force, 12% Navy, 8% Energy, 6% Army, 5% NASA and National Science Foundation, and then everybody else was 16%. So you see National Institute of Health being right there at the top with a pretty significant share of happening in this area.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that's very helpful to understand as well when individuals are choosing to apply for this type of program, at least understanding what has been the lay of the land. I always say, though, that doesn't determine, that doesn't mean it's black and white. Things can shift. Perhaps, there could be a change in how grant funding is distributed, of course, depending on what you're submitting. So that actually leads me to my next question. When we were doing the Houston Hackathon, it's typically a civic-based type of hackathon. So not everyone is developing hardware or even software. Some things are more lighter touch solutions. But in general, for the greater Houston community, what type of business is best suited to apply for both this SBIR or STTR grant?
That's a really good question. So who's best suited? Anybody that's innovating anything. Okay, so it's not only inventing some new piece of hardware or some new something or a new vaccine. It could be a new approach to inventory management using chaos theory, for instance, which is actually something that got funded. So it is any business that's innovating anything, but we'll dig a little bit deeper. If you're going to pursue these grants, then, I listed those 11 agencies. One of the things you're going to want to do is go look at what kind of projects do they like to fund. Right this minute, I checked this morning and I thought I saw 53 active grant solicitations in play. So right now there's 53 different ones. They're looking for folks to propose on those. So the business that is best suited is one that innovates anything and can apply those innovations to the needs of these agencies. So while there's one big website out there, SBIR, SBIR.gov, that's managed by SBA because we manage this program, the agencies own SBIR web pages, and you can go there and read about the kind of things they funded, the kind of things that they say are their big priorities. And if your research capability matches what they want, well, there's a fit. Once you've done that and you know that you are capable of developing, let's say, for the Department of Education, then you have to be able to show that you have the ability to carry out that kind of investigation. So you're required to have what's called a principal investigator. That's somebody that works for your business and has the academic and work background that means they can be an expert at doing this. And if you're able to do that, then it's really going to be a matter of getting really organized around how to respond in a winning way.
So I love those points that you're sharing because it's similar to a lot of the opportunities and resources that are out there in that you have to have a strong understanding of what it is that you're doing. You have to be able to communicate that clearly. You have to be able to build a strong team that's going to help you in that process. And so that I'm hearing a lot of that from you right now and being able to showcase that credibility that invest in me. I can make this happen because
Mhm.
here's my team, here's my track record, here's how I've clearly laid out my idea, my product, my service, my innovation. And Houston is full of innovators, so this is such a beautiful opportunity for our city.
But you mentioned um, that building a team and having a background in it. And some people are listening to that and going, but wait a minute, but I'm just this person here and I have this great idea, so this probably isn't available to me. That could be. That could be. Because the people that get these grants are small businesses for sure. And many times they're just a group of 4 or 5 folks. It's not a huge company. With that said, right here in the Houston area, there are some pretty significant small businesses with dozens of employees that regularly pursue and receive these grants. So don't rule it out. These are not simple to get. There is a process, and it can be time consuming. But once you crack the code on how to pursue and win these grants, it can become a pretty consistent stream of free money to develop innovations. And in the best case, you develop that innovation and the federal government likes it so much, we say, great, can you make 10,000 of those and ship them to us?
Send over
So
those POs, please.
yeah, yes, it really is a good way to do that.
So you talked a little bit about it just now, but what is that process to apply or pursue this grant?
Yeah, first and foremost, you have to be eligible for this grant. That's worth going over. I kind of skipped that earlier. You have to be a business in the United States with no more than 500 employees. You have to be a for-profit business and at least 50% controlled by an American. So this is money that's intended to fund American businesses for innovations for the United States of America. So that's first step. Assuming you are eligible, and I'm assuming everybody here is, go to SBIR.gov and look at those opportunities. As I mentioned, if you already, you're a medical research organization, then you probably don't want to go there. You probably want to go to the National Institute of Health or to Health and Human Services and look in their portals and find out all those details about what they are seeking. As I mentioned, you got to have a principal investigator on your staff, somebody that clearly has the background to carry forth this research. If all that's okay, then you sign up for what's called the System for Award Management. And then you go to the SBIR website and create a profile. So we have to know who you are. We have to know how to send this money to you. Sam does. Your SBIR registration shows us who you are as a research organization that could develop these things for us. And be aware, SAM is not a quick process. If you say, yep, I want to go apply for that grant today, you need to get a SAM registration. And that might take, could take a couple of months to go through that process because we're really careful in making sure you are the business that the federal government intends to do business with.
Yeah, we've been there before with Impact Hub Houston as well, and we've gone through that process and also make sure those passwords are up to date.
Yeah, there you go. Sometimes people will create a SAM account and they'll say, let's get Michelle to do that. And so Michelle sets it up and she does the password. Michelle leaves for a different job and now you can't get into your SAM account. Yeah, you got to think about all those things. Make sure that you keep that thing alive because that is our way to send money to you. If you can't go there anymore, then we can't give you money.
Exactly. Thank you,
Yep.
Tim. So
You're
for one of the reasons what we are doing this live stream from Impact Hub Houston's side is not only obviously to bring you all this information, but also we understand that people learn differently. And so, yes, you can go to the website right now and you'll find all those details that Tim just went over. But some people like me, I'm extremely visual. Other people like very audible. I'd rather listen to the information than have to get lost in all the heavy text. So firstly, I really appreciate, Tim, that you took the time to walk us through this opportunity and the benefit of being able to, for our viewers to be able to now watch this after on your own pace, pause it, rewind it, fast forward it, like all those pieces. It actually makes a huge difference, especially when you're looking to support diverse innovators across not just Houston, but everywhere. Because we are doing this through Impact Hub Houston, I'm just going to take that little claim here, the little badge of honor as well. Can we share some tips for having a successful application for this SBIR or STTR program?
Yeah, by now listening to you might be thinking, crap, this sounds hard. I just don't think I want to go this way. Well, there are some ways to make sure you're successful. I'll give you an example right now of level of success. In those last 4 years here in the Houston area, about 1,500 grants for almost $600 million. So there's plenty of it happening, and there are plenty of folks that do this on a consistent basis, and they're really good at it. So there are some resources in the area that can help you. But bottom line, if you're going to go after this, I think one of the best things you can do is, you can find these on the SBIR.gov website. Go to an SBIR conference. Again, if you think there's a specific area for you, such as medical research, then go to the Health and Human Services SBIR conference. They will have generally at least one a year. And the reason I say you want to go is because usually you get to speed date with the programmers that write these grant applications. They're just like me. They're devoted federal employees that aren't the scientist you are, or aren't the researcher or innovator that you are. And they know what our problems are, but maybe they can't even articulate them at this point in time. So you get a chance to meet with them and say, have you ever thought about an invention like this? Whatever your core competence is. And they go, oh, wow, what a great idea. No, but that fits in with this other thing we were thinking about. Could you send us some information on that? And with luck, in some period of time, there's a new grant proposal for exactly the kind of technology that you know how to create and deliver well. I think that's one of the best ways to be helpful. The second one is just making sure that you can go speed date or otherwise meet with those program managers that write the grant requests. They're humans. They're people just like us. They put their pants on one leg at a time. At least I think they do. And you can go see them. You can go sit down with them and find out, what are the priorities for Health and Human Services? What are the priorities for the Army? And they'll be happy to tell you, because their job is to get this grant money in the hands of wonderful folks like you that can create innovations that will affect your nation. So I absolutely encourage you to go to those conferences and to reach out to these program managers and learn directly from them. They don't mind your phone calls and they don't mind your visits.
And sometimes those numbers, those emails and contact numbers are listed in some of these grant applications, and people are afraid to call. And I always think, well, they provided it for a reason. So most likely they'll probably answer your call because no one else is calling.
Yeah, in fact, I think they look forward to it because like I say, a big part of their job is to find these solutions, and we don't know what they are. Yeah, I mean, people think, oh, you're the federal government, you just hire a bunch of people to. No, it's not that easy. When we see a problem, let's say in the battlefield with traumatic brain injury, you think you have a great solution to make sure that soldiers that are injured don't have traumatic brain injury? I guarantee you the Army wants to know about it. And if they can, they're going to write a grant request for something like that. And if it's your idea that helped influence what they're doing, then it improves your odds of being successful, getting funding. And then if they like it, they're going to buy as many as you can make in all likelihood to send out to every theater where we have war going on.
Yeah, and one thing I want to echo on and also expand on, if it's possible, it sometimes as entrepreneurs and innovators, we tend to work in a silo because sometimes you might have had that idea on your own. So as a solopreneur, you're out there trying to move everything forward. And one of the things that we forget to do sometimes is ask for help, is reach out to the resources that are out there for mentorship, for coaching, for guidance, and to do so before your idea is perfect. Because that's constant, like, no, it has to be perfect. It has to be perfect. Well, before you know it, 10 years have gone by.
Right.
So do you have any other resources that are out there to help with this process, whether locally
Yeah.
or
Yeah, we do. We do. And they're varied. And the ones that I would refer you to kind of differ on what stage you're at with your business and maybe what kind of inventions or innovations you're capable of. I would say just contact my office here in Houston. There are some statewide resources that are very good that could help you. There are more than one local resource that can help. But at the end of the day, it's going to be you being able to deliver a proposal and think of it always on about a seventh grade level, because the person reading your proposal for these grants probably doesn't have a clue what you're talking about. They're going to be somebody like me. I care about the federal government and I care about helping the Americans with whatever problems there are, but I'm not the scientist here or the innovator. You are. So I need you to tell it to me in plain language of what you're proposing and how you're going to get there and why I should make sure grant money goes to you. So don't forget that. You guys are crazy, scary, smart, but you got to tone that down in the proposals because most of the time the person reviewing it is not like you.
that is great advice. That happens a lot, especially with technical proposals, technical solutions. We see that at Impact Hub Houston and as well in a lot of our partner organizations. You're building something that's going to really transform things, but if you're not able to communicate that, then it's going to get lost. And so I'll add Impact Hub Houston also as a resource. We work on supporting change makers, social entrepreneurs, problem solvers, really, in working through this, even thinking through what your business model can look like. How do we create something that's sustainable and scalable? So if you are interested in becoming a member of Impact Hub Houston, we will drop the links in the comments and you can feel free to reach out to us. We've also dropped the link to the local Houston SBA office in the chat. There is some information there. Tim, is that where folks can connect? There is a number here, schedule an appointment.
Absolutely. And if nothing else, you can just email houston@sba.gov. It goes to my office and we will take care of you.
That one is easy to remember. I love that one.
Yeah.
Well, Tim, before we close up here, I would love to end with one question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Why do you do this work?
I worked in private industry a long time, helping companies, amass their fortunes, large companies, very large ones. And when I had the opportunity to come work with small businesses to help everyday Americans achieve their dreams and grow their businesses, it's just incredible fun. I can use my background in having helped these big companies achieve the things they wanted. And we're able to affect significant change. In some cases, the businesses we help wind up having such an impact, it's generational change. They're able to, the success they achieve affects their children and potentially affects their children. Because being an entrepreneur is, working for 5 or 10 years like others won't, in order to have a future like many others won't. And the number of digits you can add to your net worth by being an entrepreneur and doing it well doesn't even compare to what you can. Private sector is just not going to get you there. So to help folks achieve that kind of generational impact in their families and in their futures, it's a ton of fun. It really is. Everyone on the team in Houston feels the same way. We look forward to helping everyone with their small business, whatever you need. We may not have the program or the solution, but we probably know someone that does. So that's why.
Thank you, Tim. That really speaks to me as a Latina first generation in the States and first generation, even college graduate. Generational wealth and generational impact is exactly what our diverse community needs in Houston. And if through this resource, you're able to help with that, then just thank you so much already for anyone that will be receiving this grant. And thank you for the work that you and the SBA are doing, and especially here in our hometown in Houston, but all across Texas and all across the US. So thank you so much. For our viewers, Houston Hackathon again will be closing up quite soon, and we will be announcing our winners of the hackathon on Monday. So stay tuned for that announcement. We will be dropping all the links here for this funding opportunity with the SBA. And again, Tim, thank you so much to you and your team for being here with us today.
Absolutely, our pleasure and privilege. Thanks for inviting us.
Thank you.